My name is Toni Powell, and I'm really excited to be here. Isn't it amazing doing something these days? We can do this online. It's incredible. I work with universities and companies and a lot of schools, helping people learn to be happier, more well-being stuff, how to create positive cultures. And I teach a lot about happiness and gratitude. Most of my work comes out of my life, so it's a bit lived experience meets science meets humour. So today we're going to be listening to a true story, and I will share my screen because I want to play you a film. There we go. How's that looking? Can you all see that okay? Just let Margot know if you can't. The yellow car, how I stopped driving myself crazy. Now, look, all of us, what we would really love is a nice, smooth ride with some winning at the end for life. But life is like this. And at the moment, we've gone into this kind of situation where it seems like this sudden race downhill where we didn't expect all these things to happen with COVID. And it's a bit like being thrown into some ocean where there are rocks and sharks and all sorts of things happening that we did not expect. And I feel like at the moment that helping our people remain calm and reducing their stress and fear has got to be a huge focus, because if we can't do that, then we become kind of useless and disabled in our ability to have good relationships, sort the problems from the real problems and all those sort of things. And worry is something that will steal the joy from today, and we definitely don't want that. Now, I end up teaching about worry because I was the biggest worrywart on the planet. When my kids, I had 5 of them, were growing up, I wouldn't let them go on a swing. I wouldn't let them be thrown in the air. I didn't even want them to run in case something bad happened to them. So I was a real worst case scenario person. In fact, if my husband was late home from work, even just by a little bit, I would immediately leap to the worst case scenario, and I'd just go straight to, he's dead, he's probably dead. And so I'd start planning the funeral just because he was late home from work. I had real issues with being a catastrophizer and being negative. And one of the issues I had was I didn't like driving in a car, especially if it was raining, especially if it was dark. And for that reason, when we went down to Brisbane to see a performer at the Tivoli one night, I decided we would stay over with friends. And this is how the yellow car story happened. I thought we made a little 4-minute animation of this story, and I thought I would just play you the animation because it's a little bit more fun than just listening to my voice. You get pictures with my voice. Late one night in a quiet suburban street, a little yellow car drove into my life and saved my sanity. This is the story of what happened. My husband Phil and I are visiting our best friends Mark and Karen. We're sitting out on their front veranda drinking wine and just starting to enjoy ourselves when we hear violent pounding coming from downstairs. We look at each other confused. Axe murderer, I suggest? Mark's sure they don't knock. The pounding starts again. We can't agree on who should go down to face certain death, so all 4 of us descend the stairs. Karen bravely opens the door, and we see that the possible axe murderer is really an irate woman who immediately takes a step inside, looks straight at Phil and barks, "Is that your car on my nature strip?" Phil repeatedly reassures her that the little yellow car outside her house isn't ours, and eventually she leaves. As we go back upstairs, we're like little kids sniggering at this taste of neighbourhood nuttiness. Relaxing on the veranda, we have no idea just how interesting the evening is about to become. I glance over the railing and see an extraordinary scene. I call everyone over to watch the drama unfolding in the street. The irate woman is now standing near the little yellow car, looking very upset. She starts circling the car, pulling on each of the door handles one by one. A man joins her. He tries to open the boot, attempts to push the car, and even kicks the tyres. Their interaction with the car is anything but civil. We lean on the railing watching as this couple continues their odd behaviour. After 10 minutes or so, they leave the car and disappear inside the house. I'm dismayed the show is over, but no, it's not. To our great delight, the couple are back outside, pacing up and down their tiny veranda, talking in an animated manner and waving their arms around. Finally, she stops pacing, puts her hands on her hips and gives the car a death stare, while her husband gets on his mobile and begins an intense conversation. By the way he gestures toward the car, we can guess what it's about. We're all rather thrilled to have box seats to this silly street opera. Now, I know you might be thinking that this is an older couple. Not at all. They look to be in their 20s and this is Friday night. To our astonishment, the couple come out through the front gate and begin their performance all over again. It's as if we've pressed replay. He ends up leaning in the doorway as though there's a tragedy afoot. We're doubled over with laughter. Tears are running down our faces. We're almost wetting ourselves. This crazy couple has spent the best part of an hour fretting about a car parked on public property outside their house. I'm laughing so much I can barely gasp out my sentence. Who would do this? Who would be this stupid? Who would waste their Friday night upset about a car? Then I stop laughing. I realise I know the answer to my question. I know exactly who would do this. I know who is as idiotic as this couple. Me. Me! I would be this stupid. I am this stupid. I've just been watching myself. I go round and round whatever yellow car happens to be parked outside my house. I've been driving myself crazy with my fears, imagined catastrophes, regrets and obsessions. And I get on the phone driving everyone else around me crazy too, rehashing that past hurt, freaking out about the future or whining about what went wrong. I'm just like the crazy couple. I am them. Even on a Friday night, I take my misery everywhere I go. After a few moments of sobering enlightenment, I say to Phil, whenever I start doing that, whenever I start acting in that insane way about something I can't change, or some imagined something that might happen in the future, remind me about tonight. And now, whenever I begin my nutty obsessing, which is daily, he'll watch my performance for a bit, then with a smile he'll say,
Toni, it's just a yellow car.
And I'll laugh, relieved I've been reminded not to be such a moron. And look. So then, of course, after that we lived happily ever after. Oh, no, not quite. There is more to the story, but you'll have to read the book for that. So I think the question to ask yourself to determine if something's a yellow car is, can I do anything to change this? And if you can't, then it is a yellow car, and your behavior in freaking out about it is just like that couple, carrying on about a car outside the house. It doesn't get you anywhere, and it takes up a whole lot of your time. On our wedding anniversary in 2013, my husband came home at lunchtime on that day, and I thought he was coming home to surprise me and it was sweet and romantic, but actually he'd been retrenched. And we freaked out because we were in a fairly precarious financial position at the time, and that just wasn't what we'd expected at all. And I didn't have a lot of work on at the time. I was caring for my elderly mother, so it was a really frightening time. And Phil started applying for jobs but couldn't get a job. And after a couple of weeks, we sat down and we thought, well, look, we can't change this. We can apply for jobs, we can do what we can, but in the end, we can't change this. So let's stop worrying about it. Let's just decide not having a job is a yellow car and live every day not thinking about it, apart from, the applications you have to make to get another job, and not focusing on it. And so we did, and looking back, I'm so glad we did, because he was unemployed for 2 years and we could have had a really miserable 2 years. However, because we learned through the yellow car to kind of put it aside if we couldn't change it, We had a wonderful 2 years. Yes, we ended up in a lot of debt. We had to borrow a year's rent to pay our rent. And we were fortunate to have that option. However, we have found that even in quite serious situations, you can use this little yellow car to help you with all your fears and anxieties. So if it's something in your life that's in the past, maybe something someone said or did, or a decision you made, maybe a dumb financial decision. I've made so many dumb financial decisions. A betrayal, then if it's in the past, you can't do anything about it. It's a yellow car. If it's in the future, a probability, a possibility, an imagined outcome, you can't do anything about that. You do not know what the future holds. And we can look at the news and look at the news and look at the news at the moment and be pretty sure the future's going to be horrific. But we actually don't know. And dealing with horrific now, it saps our energy for dealing with whatever comes later. Someone else's decision, someone leaves you, the boss decides on a course of action that you don't like, you have a child who won't speak to you, a colleague who gets a promotion over you. All sorts of situations happen in our lives that are someone else's decisions. And sometimes we have some sway there. Sometimes we can do something to change it, but most often we can't. And so really it's still a yellow car, just as are situations that you're stuck with, such as a pandemic. You are stuck with this for the time being. A health diagnosis you didn't want or expect. Maybe you're stuck with a colleague who's way too talkative. Just, you know, the sort of things that stress us out or make us fearful or worried. They're everywhere. But a lot of them really are yellow cars. And when you discover something in your life is a yellow car, you can say, oh, it's a yellow car. It's just a yellow car. And then maybe laugh at yourself and notice, hey, I am behaving like that crazy couple. I have found this whole thing of the yellow car incredibly freeing and useful. If you cannot change it, it is a yellow car. Now, I'm not saying that you don't feel bad or fearful or worried. You know, feeling bad is normal in response to certain situations. Feeling sad in response to this pandemic, feeling somewhat afraid in response to this, it's a normal thing. The key, I think, is to not become obsessed with that feeling, to allow yourself to feel that feeling for a time, but not to become bathed in it, not to become wrapped in it, where it is the thing that is driving your life, and it becomes then the thing that colors how you see the world. I love this quote. Happiness and freedom begin with the clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. It is only after you've faced up to the fundamental rule and learned to distinguish between what you can and cannot control that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible. That couple, they watched that car for hours. Then they went off to bed, and at 3 a.m. in the morning, a young woman came and picked up the car and drove off. They weren't even there to see it, and not one single thing that they did affected that outcome. Nothing that they had done, not the phone calls they made, the pacing, none of it, not the kicking, none of it. And I think so often we do a whole lot of carry on about a problem in our lives, and in the end it affects nothing about the situation. Problems resolve themselves a whole lot of the time. So my advice is, if you want a happier, less stressed life, refrain from harassing the yellow cars in your life. Now, what I thought we might do for a little while, and Margot is going to check the comments. Can you identify a yellow car in your life? If you can now think of something that you've been stressing or worrying or feeling regret about that you can't change, do you have any yellow cars in your life? And if you type that into the comments, Margot can read them out and we can share a little about them. You can also think a bit about how you could think differently about that yellow car.
Okay, Toni, some things coming through: my job and the future, my husband's health during the pandemic. Let's try on those two first.
Yeah. So maybe whoever's written in about the future, could you type in how you could look at that maybe a bit differently in light of the yellow car? What could you think differently about that situation now?
Someone else asked about their mother-in-law. Someone else has a parking lot full of them. Past financial decisions, unjust decisions made by management, the list goes on.
The list does, yeah. You can get some people tell me they have yellow trucks or yellow buses or a fleet of yellow buses in their life. I found that if you start practicing using this yellow car thinking on small issues, you can gradually kind of ramp it up to quite significant issues. I've got some quite significant issues in our family that are frankly terrifying, and yet I've learned enough to be able to not spend my time focusing on that. I do proactive things to help with that, but I don't spend any time anymore worrying about it.
Another one is around the pandemic and the death of a loved one, regretting not being able to be there for them.
Yeah. And it'd be great if people can not only write what the yellow car is, but how they could look at it differently now. How could they change their thinking about that going forward? Live with the good memories, I can see. Yeah, focus on the good memories is great. I mean, we're not where I live in Coolum Beach. I'm not in lockdown at the moment, but I am just grabbing every moment and really, really enjoying as much as I can, knowing that it may well be another lockdown around the corner.
The common thread is obviously about the future.
Yeah.
As you said, we can't change the future.
No, we can't.
Lots of things around travel, work, study, health.
Yeah, yeah. Can any of you see that this might be a useful thing for you to put it in a different place?
Yes, we are reminded to focus on good memories.
Yeah.
Also that it is okay to talk and reach out for support.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone loves the practice of resetting your thought process. Sometimes you need a reminder that you might be caught up in a whole lot of yellow cars.
Yeah. We actually cut out yellow cars and put them all over our house. I had one on the dashboard in the car to remind me that somebody going too slow in front of me or behaving in a way on the road that wasn't to my liking, was in fact a yellow car. It might have been a red car, but it was still a yellow car. I couldn't really do anything about it, and that was a waste of time for me to get stressed about it. One of the things I think that the yellow car story also illustrates is the importance of taking a different vantage point. See, we were up on the veranda and we were looking down on a situation. We weren't down there in with it. I think often it's really useful to pull yourself back out of a situation and try and look at it from somebody else's point of view. And yeah, that can be a really helpful thing in dealing with stress and fear. Just seeing what some of these comments, oh, that's how you see the comments. My 17-year-old son will love being a yellow car. Now that couple, incidentally, still live over the road from my friends and still spend enormous amounts of time worried about what traffic is in the street. It is so hilarious. So would you like to hear the rest of the story? How many more minutes have we got, Margot?
Yes, we've got 6 minutes and 36 seconds.
Okay, well, I can tell you the rest of the story. So, about 11 o'clock, we went off to bed and we got up in the morning, we looked out and the yellow car was gone. Now, while we were having breakfast, my friend's son, Ryan, came into the room and we told him about our story. He then told us that he'd come in, he's a musician in a band, so he'd come in late at night with his band members and they got out, stood out in the street and they were just standing in the street having a cigarette or something. And the couple come out of the house and start haranguing them, insisting that one of them owns the car and that they've caused them the problem. Now, Ryan and the other people just say, no, it wasn't us, it wasn't us. But what they didn't say was they did know whose car it was one of their friends, but that friend wasn't right there. So they eventually kind of backed off from this angry couple, went into the house, hung around for a while, and at 3 in the morning, their friend arrived and then took the car. So we knew what had happened, and we knew that even at midnight, they were still freaking out and, you know, going into the street to accuse strangers of parking a car outside their house, which is, I think, a pretty good indication they've lost perspective. This is the sort of behaviour you really don't do. And they are still now behaving exactly the same way. They're obsessed about where anyone parks in the street, and it's a narrow street, so they've got a good lot of things to keep them occupied and stressed. I've been extremely tempted to put a yellow car book in their letterbox, but I haven't done it yet.
One more question, Toni. What other mental exercises do you use with the yellow car analogy?
Like as a tool that's alongside, or as a way to fight fear? Well, I'll just assume it's a way to fight fear and anxiety. I find one really helpful thing is to examine the fear and, you know, write down what your fears and stresses are, because sometimes we've got all these fears, but we haven't actually articulated or even understood what the nature of that is and what we fear in the long run. So when we were in that unemployed phase and early on when we were so freaked out, we were walking on the beach one morning and I asked Phil, well, what is it you're afraid of? And he said, I'm afraid of being homeless. But actually homeless wasn't a likely outcome. My mother lived nearby in a 5-bedroom house, so we would have had a bedroom in her house. If homeless wasn't what we needed to be afraid of. We needed to be concerned about living with my mother, but not about being homeless. So sometimes we're afraid of things we don't even know what they are. We haven't even looked at what they are. And that's a really good starting point, because once you look at what you are afraid of, you can plan for it if needed. You can work to change it if needed, or you can work on accepting it if needed. You know, there's lots of different options, but until you even understand what it is that you're worried about, it's very difficult. And just even writing it all down takes the burden out of your brain and tends to make you feel a lot lighter. Looking now at these questions. Yeah, I'd like to see how the neighbours enjoy the yellow car book. I'm so tempted. Do I think practicing empathy helps with having better? Oh yes, definitely. It's a great practice. I think that gives us so many skills and does so many wonderful things inside us. Empathy rocks. Well,
there's lots of great comments there, Toni. I think everyone agrees with you, and obviously it's practice makes perfect.
Yep, it's practice. Start on the little things and work your way up.
Just to let everyone know, you will receive a copy of the recording after the event with links to Toni's website. Of course, Toni would be happy to talk more with you and your colleagues if need be in this time that we're all in. With 1 minute to go, I just want to thank you very much, Toni, for being a part of this event. We really appreciate it. We look forward to being with you in person next year when we can all get together again.
Yeah, won't that be wonderful?
But if there's any other questions that come through, we will send them to you. We will ask you to answer them as you can, and they will be emailed through to everyone who's attended.
Yep, and thank you everyone for attending, and do feel free to email me, be in contact if you have a question. I'd be happy to answer it. Have a great day.